Well, here we go again. Getting back into the groove. Todd Medina, Soulogy Network. Been on a little bit of a hiatus. I think a lot of people have been. I think a lot of people have been on a hiatus. And it seems like we've reached a point where that we've been at before. I think a few times, quite a few times, since 2012. Some of us before, some of us after. But yeah, many times we get to a point where we let me turn this up. Boom. Test. I don't know why that's so low. Turn this up. Test. What is going on here? How's that? Yeah, I think we get to these points where we kind of like reassess. We've entered to a space of expanded awareness, and you go, wow, I know more. I've downloaded more, and now what do I do with this? What do I do with this new level of information? Let's see if I can fix this damn thing. Okay, that might be better. Let's move this out of the way. What's going on, everybody? As usual, I'm not really sure what I'm doing here, what I'm going to talk about. But let's get into it. Yeah, we get to these new spaces where we have a greater level or a wider expanse of awareness, and you can kind of look at it like the whole trip that we're on. You know, we all had our lives, and we were living our lives, and we were awakened, whatever you want to call it. And we spent a lot of time talking about that. We spent a lot of time over the years talking about, you know, what we were downloading, what we were transmitting, what we were remembering, going through many activations, many triggers, because they're all one and the same thing. And then we discuss these things with each other, and then we kind of figure out what are we going to do with all this information. We can keep sharing the things that we've experienced and the things that we're experiencing in the present day. But still, what do we do with all this? Are we here to save the world? Are we here to turn the world around? Or are we simply aligning with what's happening and going to happen? I think at a minimum, we're hitting this level of awareness, and although whatever it is, the you, me, we, and it, what's bigger than all of us, what we all comprise together collectively, does have a certain template, does have a certain like a certain path, but not 100% predetermined. And I think that's where we're at. Like, what do we want to do from here? How do we want to kind of set the tone or set the direction of what we want to experience from here forward? Because we only get one chance. There's only one first time. I will never be Todd Medina again, and you will never be you again. We will change form. We will enter new incarnations and new experiences, but that's for the so-called future. What are we going to do now? And I believe a lot of what people are coming to is that we're going to collaborate and co-create together in a way that we never have before, taking this newfound awareness that we find ourselves in 2024, and we start to put things together. We start to put these puzzle pieces together. And I don't believe there's anyone on the face of the earth that has it down. You know, you could say there's 8 billion people here and there's 8 billion Earths. There's certainly 8 billion different perspectives and 8 billion different dimensions, if you will. We share space together. This is all we have is this present moment. And that's all great and that's all fine and dandy. I don't believe there are any directions. I don't believe that there are anything that's set in stone. But I do believe that the universal infinite intelligence has brought us to a point where we can start to explore in a way that we never have before, where we combine the Akashic, you could say, with the living library that is the value and experience of our lives, and we can start to come together in different ways. And for me, although we're certainly going to pick up the ball where we've left it with the Soulogy network and with our own lives, so we have some foundation, some direction from where we've been to where we are, but where we're going, I think, is wide open. And I believe that, and I've said this for many years on the shows, it's in the energy or in the field of spontaneity and intuition and creativity and imagination and courage. So I've been asked this last video that I did, I was asked, guided by my soul that is me, to share some experiences, not to bring, not necessarily to bring awareness to my own journey, but to, in some way that I've yet to really understand, to, kind of step out there into that vulnerability and into that transparency, I guess. Not so much, again, about me, but just to kind of find our way to where we're going, where we are and where we're going. So what does that all mean? Well, today what it means is that I guess this is like part 2 of Todd interviewing Todd the interviewer interviewing Todd the guest. And if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to put them up on Facebook, on YouTube, either one of them, and I'll be happy to answer them. But, in telling of our experiences, it's not so much about the individual's journey, although that could be interesting, and maybe some people are curious about it since I've spent, 4,000 plus shows asking other people things. But it's to hopefully and intended to open up code in those that see it or those that hear it. We're all reflecting each other, and that's what I'm trying to do today, and really every day, is to be a reflection of you. So let me just take a moment and say that it's an honor to be here with you all, not only in this moment, in this transmission, but also in this lifetime. And I firmly believe that we've made a lot of headway, and we will continue to have extraordinary expansions and activations and triggers, which are really one and the same thing, to bring us to this space of this is all we have right here, right now. Yesterday I took my mother to, let me just say this real quick on the network. We have been in hiatus, and that's been on me, and I make no apologies for it. I didn't really want to get into anything, and I won't get into anything in any detail because it really is kind of up in the air. We're making this up as we go. We have some idea of what we want to do at the network, but we are getting back online. And let me just say also that anyone that sends emails or messages, I will get to them. And I'm going to try to communicate these things in mass rather than individually, because it's just very time consuming. But tomorrow I'll be making a tutorial for the producers, the existing producers, and anyone that would like to come out onto the network and do their own show, where they can just be self-sourcing and self-sufficient and create what they want to create. And we can talk about that more later. So let's talk about. I'm going to talk a little bit about not so much about my past, but I'm happy to answer any questions about that, because I had 4 people send me a note and they said, "Can we ask questions next time you come on about what you've experienced in this and that?" But I'm going to talk about something that happened to me yesterday, and it will take me back to 10 or 11 or 12 years ago. I look for the symbology. As many of us are starting to understand that the universal is always speaking to us in each and every moment, and kind of guiding us and telling us what's happening. So yesterday I took my mother to the eye doctor, and I drove out west of town to this facility, and lo and behold, it was adjacent to this place, this sanctuary, where I had many profound experiences in the first year when I reawoke. Actually, the first couple of years when I had chose by my own volition to go homeless. So I took my mom out to this place to see this doctor, and it was right next to this sanctuary. So back in 2012, December 2011, January 2012, I think is really when it started. January 2012 actually is when it started. It's coming back to me now. This sanctuary is a park that was being built in 2011, late 2011, early 2012. And so it was basically a soccer field. And then on the other side of the soccer field, there was like a big pond. And out of the pond came a creek that ran down quite a ways. And eventually they would build this park, and they'd have a sidewalk all the way around it. But when I was homeless, I got called out there. And it was pretty extraordinary. And it came up again because I took my mom to this doctor. It just happened to be right next to this sanctuary where I used to go. Well, one night in January of 2012, just 7 or 8 months into this spirit walk, where again I had chose to kind of go homeless, I guess you could say. I was at this. I used to go and dance in the electronic clubs and the hip hop clubs, so one night in January 2012, things really started to pick up. It was almost like the second phase of my spirit walk. The first phase was 7 months, and oddly enough, the second phase was 7 months, and what I would call the third phase was 7 months. But in the beginning of the second phase of this spirit walk, one night I was out till 2 o'clock in the morning, dancing at this hip hop club, and afterwards, I went to this park, or this soccer field with this developing park next to it, which I really hadn't been to. I'd seen it a couple of times, and I just had this call. My soul said, "You need to go out there." So I did, and I had just gotten through, like I said, this first 7 month period of a spirit walk. And so I went out there, and I had a car at the time. I had picked up a car for a couple of months anyway. And again, it's 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning. Been dancing for 3 or 4 hours. It's January. It's probably 50 degrees, 45, 50 degrees. And on this particular night, there was this really strong wind. The sky was full of these billowy clouds, like just real pillow looking clouds. I mean, it was just massive clouds, and the wind was really, really strong, strong enough that, it would shut your door if you opened it. I mean, from your car, it was strong enough to where you could really feel it. And the clouds above were moving the same direction as the wind. And as I headed, being guided by my soul, I headed across this soccer field to where the pond was and the creek. And again, it was a very, very, almost really a dimensional experience, but being consciously awake, obviously. Just, when your soul really, really, gives you a strong communication, and there's just no question is what you need to do. I didn't know why. I didn't know why. Now, prior to this particular experience, just a few days before, I had been presented with an energy of a disincarnated soul. It was someone that I didn't know when they were in their body, but I knew someone that knew them, and I didn't really understand it at the time because the consciousnesses that had been showing themselves to me up to that point were primarily Archangel Michael consciousness and Yeshua and Magdalene. Those were pretty much it at that point. There were many animal encounters and this type of thing, but a few days before this happened, this energy, this disincarnated soul, if however you want to put it, it was a teenage boy that was somehow or another connected to this Archangel Michael consciousness, and so what would happen is this energy would leave me pennies throughout my day. And that's kind of how it started. He would leave me pennies and let me know that I was on my right track, right? So I pull up into the parking lot next to this soccer field where the park is on the other side. And again, you know how these things happen. You think you're crazy. Am I hearing voices? Is something wrong with me? Am I crazy? And after 7 months of that type of divine episodes and just different things coming in, I still was questioning myself, just like we still do at times, although we shouldn't anymore. So when I got out of the car, I opened the door and there was a penny on the parking lot ground. And I heard, "Put your CD in the CD player." Now, I had gotten this car and I hadn't had it long, and I wouldn't have it long because I wouldn't be able to pay it. I had a CD and one CD, and I put it into the CD player, and it just stuck in there, and it didn't do anything. And so I tried to get it to work several times, and it wouldn't work. And so when I got out of the car and I opened the door, and I mean, the wind's coming and I'm holding the door open. It's that much wind. And I look down, I see the penny. When I saw the penny, I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track. And then I heard very clearly, "Push play on your CD player." And I thought, that's weird. My CD player doesn't even work. So I put the keys back in the car, turned on the juice, and I clicked the CD player, and it played. And it was an NWA CD straight out of Compton. So I just started dancing in the parking lot, 2:30 in the morning, nobody's around, and kind of just enjoyed that energy and that experience for a moment. And then I turned it off and closed the door and was guided to walk towards the pond. But in order to go to the pond where the sanctuary was, I had to walk across the soccer field. So as I start to walk across the soccer field, and I can just feel the energy in my body, The wind is blowing stiffly against me. The clouds are full, like I said, real billowy and moving the same direction, the same speed. And for some reason, the number 55 kept popping in my head. It was 55 degrees, I remember now, just in recollection. I, for some reason, thought the wind was 55 miles an hour because it sure felt that way. I don't know, but the number 55 just was like in my third eye, was in my consciousness, was in my field, right? And so I start to walk across this soccer field and into this stiff wind. And as I'm walking, I can see on my lower peripheral, my eyes are looking straight towards the sanctuary that I'm walking to, and I can see a circle, a white illuminated circle, like a light was shining from above onto the ground in the middle of the soccer field. And so as I kind of made a mental note of it, and I kept walking, I kept walking towards the sanctuary across the soccer field. Now, as I enter the circle that was illuminated beneath me, that I didn't just look at, I just could see it in my lower peripheral and just kind of made a note of it. I walk into the circle, and as I walk into the circle, the wind stops totally. There's no wind. It's literally like like a pond when it's like a mirror, like when it's like just not moving at all, no ripples, no nothing. Well, I walked into the circle and there was no wind, and I thought, holy shit, that's pretty weird, you know, that's pretty strange. Um, and I kind of stopped for a second, and then I thought, I don't even know what I thought. I just kept walking uh, again, and as soon as one foot left the other side of the circle, the wind came back. And I thought, wow, that's weird. And I stopped. One foot in the circle, one out. And so I thought, okay. So I took a step back. Now I'm back in the circle, both feet, and the wind stops again, right? And so I thought, wow, this is really trippy. I am losing my mind or something's going on. And so I took another step out just to test it. Took another step out, one foot in, and the wind started again, you know. So I came back, took a step back, and again the wind stopped. So I took that as a sign, obviously. Backed up 3 or 4 feet into the center of this circle, which was about 15 feet wide, I would say. And there's no wind. And I just innately knew to take a knee. So I took a knee, got on my knees, and I just didn't know what to do, but I just got on my knees and I looked up, and I was in a dome. I was in a geomantic dome with all these ley lines, circumventing it. It was all, just outlined with these ley lines in this dome, and I'm on my knees, looking up at this dome. There's no wind. It was like I was in, another place or something. I mean, I could still see the park, and I could still see the soccer field, and I could still look back and see my car in the parking lot. But the other thing that happened was, all of a sudden, I started to hear all of these. I wouldn't call them tones. It was more like vibrational resonant sounds. It was just it was just this energy in the form of vibrational resonance, but also I could see like almost like plasma. And again, all within this dome was some plasma. There was rainbow colors in it, and I didn't hear any words at all. I didn't hear any words for about 4 or 5 minutes. I just knelt there and observed this dome with these ley lines or grid lines or whatever you want to call them in this geomantic dome, and watching kind of this rainbow plasma and hearing this resonance, this of sound and vibration and frequency. Now, I didn't hear anything, but I knew that I was receiving something because I could feel it all entering my body. And then after about 4 or 5 minutes, all of a sudden I heard, "Now get up and keep walking." So I did. I stood up and I started walking. And again, as soon as I took that first step outside of that circle, um, the wind hit and I heard, "Just keep going." And I kept going. And I walked about 10 or 15 feet and I looked back to see if the circle was there, and it was gone. The next thing I know, I turned to start walking. Now, keep in mind that it's pretty dark outside. The sky is full of these billowy clouds, and of course the wind. So the ability to see wasn't like in the daytime. I couldn't really see, but very just a few feet in front of me. And so I walked a little bit more. I'm getting closer to the sanctuary, the pond, and the creek, but I don't really know where I'm going. And all of a sudden I see on the ground this figure, and I'm a Sagittarius, uh, and it looked like a Sagittarius figure. It looked, this is on the soccer field, and the soccer field has a pretty uniform color to it, uh, but it looked like a patch of the outline of a Sagittarius with the arrow pointing a particular direction towards this sanctuary, which I would come to find out in a couple of minutes later was right on the bank, a pretty broad bank of about 30 feet of right where the pond kind of drains into a creek, or the creek comes into the pond. And I would say this creek or whatever, this inlet was probably about I would say probably about 10 feet across. Now, this arrow sent me that direction, so I end up at this place where the pond is meeting this inlet, and it's like a bank. And so I took a position as guided on this bank, and just kind of stood there. And I looked across the other side, and on the other side of this inlet was another bank, and it was bigger than the one I was on. Mine was about 20, 25 feet, maybe 30 feet. This was more like about 50 or 60 feet. And I look across to the other side, and I see this boy that had come to me that's associated with this Archangel Michael. And he is kind of like kneeling down, not kneeling down, but like sitting down, with his butt on the ground and his knees up, kind of like just squatting. And I see him, and I said, "Am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Because it sure looks like him." And he stands up, and he to me looked not totally solid, but not totally translucent. And he stood up, and he looked at me, didn't say anything, and he raised his hand and pointed to the sky, off to his left, off to my right, up in the sky. So I looked where he was pointing, and again, the wind's blowing like, I don't know what it was, like, I don't know, 15 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. The clouds are all billowy, and they're moving the same speed as the wind. And I look over where he points, and I hear, "We're going to show you a little glimpse of the universe." And as soon as I heard those words, I saw the clouds open up, the sky open up, okay? And this mist came down from that opening down to the other side of the bank, the other bank. And as soon as it hit the ground, it started to move the same speed, same direction as the wind in the clouds. And this mist moved through me. It came across from that bank to across the inlet, the creek, onto the bank that I was on, and then through me. And I don't remember hearing any words or anything. I just remember feeling the mist, and it was like a mist, like when it's misting outside. and I could feel myself getting wet, and then I remember putting my arms out, and then just having these tears just started. Judith Kuzel calls them purity tears, and they were just coming down. Like, I wasn't convulsing. I wasn't, like, just, like crying uncontrollably. It just like, it was weird. It was just like big tears just started coming down my face, and so I was like, wow, this is crazy, man. What do you do at that time when something like that happens? And so then I looked across. It kind of went past and everything, and the whole that part of the experience kind of passed through me. And I looked across the bank, and just over. Well, now he had pointed to the left, to his left up in the sky. This time I looked at him and he pointed behind him to the right. And so I looked to where he was pointing, and it wasn't up in the sky. It was more like, say, 25, 30 feet off the ground where he was pointing. And I look up and I start to see like almost like a movie screen. And I don't remember all of the words that came in, but I remember hearing, "We're going to show you all the times that your physical body was saved from what they call death." And so it's like I started to watch this movie. And in this movie, they were showing me going back to when I was a kid, was the first one, where if you watch the previous video I did, I talked about this hand that moved me out of the way of a car when I was like 6 years old, when I was on my bicycle, literally moved me out, put me on the sidewalk. And that was the first one they showed me. They showed me that same scene on my bike. They showed me, the difference was they actually showed me in angelic form, like a team of angels. Like, I think there was like 3 or 4 angels, and they picked me up and moved me over. And then it would go on to show me different experiences, 25 in number. And it showed me all these different ones. And I think the most activating one of them all was a number of years earlier. I was driving down a Florida highway on a Friday night, coming in from out of town after about a 3-hour drive in a stressful, week of working like long hours. And I was coming to the last exit before I would get off to my house, which was like 3 or 4 miles away. And so I had gotten a phone call from my wife at the time, who had 3 kids in the car, and just as I'm coming to that point on the trip, she calls me and tells me that they're stranded and that the cars broke down and they're in the middle of nowhere or something like that. And just all the stress hit me. And I had talked about it on the previous show and before. I had 150 to 200 seizures from the ages of 15 to 50. And sure enough, I'm driving down the road and I'm exiting on this last exit after a 3-hour trip. And I can feel myself about to have a seizure. So I pull over on the exit ramp and try to slow the car down and whatever. And that's the last thing I remember. The next thing I know, I ended up waking up. There's a little white light. If you've ever gotten into a car accident and your airbag goes off, there's a little white light that has like this tone to it. And I ended up, I was, didn't know where I was. I was disoriented, and I had hit a tree. I had gone down a ravine into a swamp and hit a tree. Now, when I was watching the video, they were showing me how the car had gone onto the ravine and was going down at an angle. And they were showing me like this team of angels that was holding the car up from a diagonal standpoint to keep it from rolling over. Okay. And that was the one that really activated, it really struck me the most. So I watched this video, for 10 minutes or so, and they're showing me these 25 times that save my physical body or my physical life, if you want to put it that way. And then they were telling me why. They were telling me that, that and this I think would hold for all of us, and I think this is part of the reason that my soul, me, has guided me to share this, is so that maybe uh, in the best of worlds it reactivates important code for others, or validates, or something like that. I'm not really sure. I'm just doing as I'm guided to do. But so anyway, they said to me, "You've got some important things to do." And yes, up to this point, your human life, just like all of you, had been full of trauma, and you wanted to get out of here, and you had suicidal thoughts, and you wrote a suicide note, and this and that and all this stuff that had happened in my life, especially the previous 2 or 3 years or so. That we weren't going to let you go, and we want you to understand that you know, it may be really dark right now, and you may be going through these incredible divine episodes. And I've said many times on the shows that, my life proved that you can actually lose your mind and find the light at the same time. And those people that were around me in my life at that time would vouch for this. But that was the big message. Uh, and that lasted, like I said, about, 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And so I kind of sat with that for a second, and then the crazy thing was, I looked to the right again to see where this boy is, and he looks at me and waves, and then turns to his left, and he takes a step like to leave. His back turning to me, he's going to leave, and one or two steps into his departure, he disappears. And I thought, man, wow. And and then all of a sudden, I noticed to my left on the opposite bank, it looked like like when you go to the movie theater and it's got like the tiers going up, and the movie screen is down at the bottom of the movie theater, the stairs coming down. It looked like that, and I look to my left and I see this kind of like stairwell, like you would see, coming from the top of the movie theater down. And I look to my left, and all of a sudden, I start to see these figures. Now, these figures were not solid. Uh, they were translucent. They had this really, um, I don't know. It was like a golden white. I don't know. At times it was a bluish white, and times it was a golden white. Kind of an outline of them. I could see their silhouettes. I could see the structures of their face. Now, keep in mind that they're across this little creek on the other bank, coming down what looked like a holographic stairwell. And they were there were they told me there were 300 of them, and so I watched 300 of these individual souls, who I was told at the time came to bear witness to my experience. And so each one of them came down the stairs, and as they came down the stairs, they would kind of look at me and nod and turn to their right, 1 to 2 steps, they disappear. So I watched this for 15 or 20 minutes, and and just took it all in. Right, I just took it all in, and it was an amazing experience that I'm told to share. So now, the other thing about this sanctuary is, from that point on, I would visit it very, very often. And again, it was under construction, so there was a sidewalk going around the pond. There was a little kind of a deck at one place, and so basically it was the pond, and then just the creek coming out of it. But I had quite a few experiences there, and I just want to cover a couple of them, because it has some significance to what's occurred to me in the last week. And this has to do with animal experiences. Now, remember, at this time in my life in 2012, this is actually just, I would say, probably a couple of months before I was given the name Soulogy. And I would go out there, and this is a time in my life when I was homeless, and I was literally holding the hands of angels on one hand, and you could call it devils on the other hand, but I would just say contrast, right? So I was, in this constant communion. I was doing a lot of walking. I had a car in this period of time, but not for very long. I had it for like 2 or 3 months, and a lot of extraordinary things happening, and so on. But I would go to the sanctuary late at night after I would go dance at the club, and I would just either spend the night there or spend the night in my car. But I would hang out there by myself in the wee hours of the morning. And I remember one time going over there, and this is a very traumatic time. I've had a separation. I've got a family member that's very ill. I'm separated from my kids. I'm obviously got no money. I'm been awakened, and I'm 8 9 months into this awakening. And then one night I went out there, and I was just like we've all been, just in this space of tears and like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? Like, am I losing my mind? I mean, and I go to sit on the bank of this pond at the sanctuary, and I posed a question, and I said, "Am I crazy? What the heck is going on?" And no sooner than I finished saying those words, this giant figure that was solid, it definitely was solid, goes right in front of me, like maybe 5 7 feet in front of me, and it's a giant. I think it's called a heron. It's a big bird. It's a big bird that probably sits about 4 to 5 feet tall, right? Bluish gray. And as it was going by, I could feel the wind from its wings. And it goes and lands about 10 feet to my right. And I'm thinking, did I just see that? And then I feel it land, or in my peripheral see it land literally right next to me. And I turn and look at it, and it's facing the pond. But as soon as I turn and look at it, it turns and looks at me and tells me, "No, you're not crazy." And again, I thought, did I just hear that? And as soon as I said that, another one comes right across in front of me, takes a position on the other side of that big bird, and the same thing happens. So, you know, the animal experiences, and I know everybody has their own different connections, but the animal experiences are very, very important. And I've left out many, many experiences that I've had with animals, especially in that first 2 years, particularly with red-tailed hawks, skunks, and it just dogs, cats. But there's a reason that I'm bringing this up now, in part because of what's been happening recently. Uh, Animal communication is something I think that's going to come online more and more and more as the days proceed. Another time that I went out to the sanctuary, and I was, again, 2 3 o'clock in the morning. I've been dancing at the clubs. I'm walking on the edge, of the bank of this pond. And again, I only go there because I'm drawn to go to this particular spot, and I go to this particular spot, and I stand there, and I'm probably like, I'm in tall grass that maybe it's 5 inches high, 5 6 inches high, maybe 4 inches high, and I stand in this spot, and I'm told to stand in this spot. I'm like, what's going to happen? As soon as I get there, all of a sudden I feel my feet drop like 2 or 3 inches, right? Like something got pulled out from under me. And I look down, and there's a circle of water moccasins, of snakes. I've actually landed in a circle of these water moccasins, and I disturbed them while they were sleeping, I guess. And as soon as I did that, they all went into the pond. I mean, I watched like 12, 15 of these water moccasins go right into the pond that I'd been standing on them. So that particular episode uh, was was the beginning of an initiation, apparently, because I'd been going through quite a few initiations, as we do, and it had to do when uh, I had said earlier that these I had certain guides, as we do, certain teams and so on, and that went through certain initiations and had gotten to a point where they said, "This is your. We're going to send in three guides um, to teach you something, kind of like your last lesson, like your last major lesson." And so I was sitting in my car, and I'll come back to the and connect that. I was sitting in my car, and I was actually sitting outside my son's Pizza Hut, where he was a manager. You know, he's a high school kid, but he's managing this Pizza Hut late at night. I think I went to get a pizza, and so as I was sitting in the car, I started to have like a montage of all these people that had, I don't want to say traumatized me, but were antagonists or triggered me, or major players of antagonists in my life. And I won't get into particulars of who they were, but they were obviously relatives and etc. and etc. And they were just like coming at me. It was really weird. It was like I was in a vortex or a wormhole or something, and they just kept coming at me. And again, I started to have a seizure. So I put the seat down, and I put the air conditioner on me, and because I don't want to have a seizure, because I don't like those things. I had too many, and so during that transmission, they told me, uh, you stepped into the center of the circle of these snakes, and they are a great wisdom, and we need for you to go back to the sanctuary, and we'll tell you where to go. And I'm like, okay, once I got my self together and got over the potential seizure, so I drove out to the sanctuary, and as I was approaching it, walked to the pond, and there's a sidewalk that goes around it. I heard, "Take a right, and we'll be there." So I'm like, okay. So I start to walk down the sidewalk, and as the sidewalk is making a curve to the left, to go around, the pond, the front of the pond, I come around the corner, and there's a snake, and that snake is like perched like this. Most of its body in the grass, and the rest of it perched like that out onto the sidewalk, which is about what a sidewalk is, what, 3 or 4 feet wide. And I see it, and I stop, and I heard, "Are you afraid? Do you trust?" And I'm like, well, I do trust, but I don't know if I trust that much. You evidently want me to walk by this snake, okay? And it's perched like that, and I said, okay, um, I think I stood there for 3 or 4 minutes. This snake never moved. It was so weird. It was almost like it was a statue, like it was frozen. And it was the same water moccasin species that I'd seen before, kind of silvery looking and in pretty good size. I would say it was probably 3 feet, maybe 3.5 feet, big enough that it could certainly do some damage. And now all my human could do was think, well, I think I heard somewhere or read somewhere that snakes feel body heat. Now here I am on a cold night, about to walk by this snake, and I'm a warm-bodied, warm-blooded mammal, and my human side's saying, you're going to get bitten, and they're poisonous. So I'm not going to tell you that I just walked by it, with total courage and confidence, but I did. I took my time. I didn't walk by it, like I said, with courage and confidence. I took my time. I settled myself. I took in a few breaths, and I took a step and a step and a step and a step, and I probably came within, I would say, because I wasn't going to walk right next to it. I mean, I knew it could still strike me, but I was probably anywhere from like say 12 to 18 inches. I'd say more like 15 to 18 inches, and I walked by it step by step, and each step I'm saying, I am soul, I am soul, I am soul, or you or me, or I don't remember all the mantras that I was saying or the affirmations, but I did. I walked by it, and evidently that was an initiation to overcome fear. Um, and so I had other ones as well. Now, I don't know what I'm saying with these solos that I'm doing right now. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I figure it out as we all do. I guess it's some kind of microcosm of how we're actually existing now, how we're being present and guided by being present with ourselves and following our guidance in the moment, each moment. So I'm going to connect it to what's been going on lately. Um, Most every night I go for a walk. Now the strange thing is I ended up coming back to Houston uh, in December of 2022. It wasn't planned. A lot of people know, what happened. I had the Soulogy Fest in Arkansas and got pulled over right before it started and ended up getting not arrested, but taken into custody for a warrant that was 6.5 years old for a Class B misdemeanor for an assault that was basically a bunch of BS. And a long story to that. Maybe we'll tell that story one other day. But but what it did do was brought me back to Houston. It brought me back to the bayou. It brought me back to the neighborhoods that I'd been homeless in, and where my grandmother had lived, and where my mother had lived, and my family had lived, and so on. Um, and so, I've talked a little bit about that in the past year, from time to time. So, but what's and so I don't know if everybody knows as well, but my mother was living in a senior community, and we got reunited after 6 years of not speaking to each other or seeing each other or whatever, and it's all been great. And so we decided to move her back into her house before she sold it. She had it up for sale, or was about to, and got her back here. And now I'm living in the studio where I started when I came off the streets in 2013. Same room, same spot where I made the first Soulogy video. Now, in this area, there's a bayou. Houston is the bayou city, and so there's a bayou, and that's where I spent a lot of my time. That's where that sanctuary that was on the bayou and other places on the bayou. I had many experiences. So most every night I go for a walk into the bayou. It's my way of communing with the universal and getting my thoughts together, the Todd time, my me time. And so I spend, most nights I'll go for a walk for, 20, 30 minutes, depending on the weather, to a couple hours. So, in about a week, maybe 10 days ago, I went for a walk, and I was going for the walk, and I spent time, communing with the trees and communing with the wind and the bayou itself. I spend time there on this special bridge I call the Holy Bridge. I cross it every night. And about 10 nights ago, I crossed the Holy Bridge. I'm on a sidewalk, and I'm not like every time I go across the bridge, I always stop and kind of anchor my thoughts and then go across. And each time's different, different experiences. I acknowledge the river of knowledge on one side and the river of life on the other side, and I walk across the bridge. So somewhat in connection. But this particular night, I wasn't quite as present as I normally am, at least when I got off to the other side. And as I start walking down the sidewalk, all of a sudden, this rabbit darts out in front of me, right? and it darts out in front of me, goes to the tree line, turns around, and stops. And I stopped, and I heard, "Hey, you know, get out of your mind." And I looked at the rabbit and I said, "Hey, I love you. Thank you for reminding me." And I just kind of connected with him, merged with it. And then I went about my business. So the next night, it happened again, but this time I was conscious. And I'm walking that same place, that same area. There's the rabbit waiting for me. Uh, as I start to approach, maybe I get, I'd say, 15 feet from where it's going to be, Um, it turns again, like you would think an animal would, and it runs to the tree line and turns around and stares at me, and I go through the same process. So I go through this process every single night without fail. And every night, this is for, I haven't counted it, but I'd say probably, 8 to 10 days, or let's say up until 3 days ago. So say for a week. And every time it sees me, as I get kind of close to it, it turns and runs to the tree line, stops, turns around, and I'm staring at it, and we have a conversation, or we commune, or we merge. So, about 1, 2, 3 nights ago, I think, when all those solar flares were coming in, so that would have been like Monday or something, um, I went for my walk. And I had had an activating experience. And so I was looking forward to my walk and looking forward to maybe even going down into the bayou, because sometimes I'll go on the sidewalk and then I'll go into the bayou. Sometimes I go into the bayou, then into the sidewalk. So on that particular night, I came out of the townhouse, came out of the complex. I start walking down the big sidewalk next to the road, and I'm not even at, to the bayou yet. I'm still like adjacent to the townhouse complex, and right as I'm moving past that and getting closer to the bayou and where the bridge is, I look to my right, and there's a dead rabbit. And I thought, man, what in the F does that mean? You know, like, just got a huge activation. I'm looking at a dead rabbit. That was a day where there was like 10 solar flares in 8 hours. And, and I kind of thought for a second, I looked at it, I blessed it, and I pulled my phone out because I was going to look up the spiritual definition of a dead rabbit. But then my soul, that is me, said, you don't need to do that. You have the answer. You will be given the answer, something like that. And I said, okay. So I put my phone back in my pocket and I started walking down the sidewalk. I go across the Holy Bridge. I do my thing on the bridge. I come off on the other side of the bridge. And for the first time, I said, because I never said, where are you, rabbit? Never said that. I just walk. I don't know if I forget it's coming or whatever the case is, but I just never say, hey, I never look for it, right? So as I come across the bridge and I start to walk into that little straight where I've seen this rabbit, wondering if that rabbit is the dead rabbit, or wondering what the significance of the dead rabbit was, I I say to myself, am I going to see you? And as soon as I said that, took a few more steps, I see the rabbit to my left. And then I see the rabbit to my left, and it does what it normally does, right? It kind of, as I get closer, it turns, runs to the tree line, stops and looks at me, right? Did our thing. Okay, one dead rabbit, here's the other rabbit. Then I take a few more steps, not more than like 5 or 7 more steps, and there's another rabbit. So for the first time ever, there's 2 rabbits, not one. And so I immediately was told that this is symbolizing another death, but we're one you could say one has gone, two have come back. So from one death, two were born, right? And so that was the transmission that I received, but that's not the last thing that happened. So then the next day, so this would be 2 nights ago, I go for my walk, and now I've had all these experiences, and I go down the sidewalk and see the dead rabbit still there. The city hasn't picked it up, and keep on going. Go to the Holy Bridge, do my thing, come off on the other side, not thinking about the rabbit, and walk a little bit further than I normally do before I see the rabbit. And all of a sudden, about 3 feet, 4 feet off to my left, off of the sidewalk, is the rabbit. And something told me the rabbit's not going to run anymore. And I'm like, okay. So I just kept walking. I didn't stop like I do when it runs to the tree line. I just walked, but I'm looking at it and I'm talking to it. Hey, love you, see you there. What does this mean? Like trying to commune with it and keep my mind out of it. And as I walk by, the rabbit who's feeding on the grass puts his head up and stares right at me. And the whole time as I'm walking by, didn't run off, didn't leave. Now this happened the next night as well, right? So now the rabbit's not running from me and running to the tree line. We're still having the conversations, and I believe it will only expand from there. So in these last 2 nights, the message has been that, and I know others have talked about this. And again, I'm not telling these stories to bring attention to myself. I'm telling these stories as guided by the soul that I am, to, in some incomprehensible way to the human only, right? To reflect what is in you, right? And so that's kind of the message of the last 2 nights that the rabbit gave me, has been that you're now in equilibrium with me. You're reflecting me as I'm reflecting you. And to go a little bit deeper, telling me like the animal kingdom is part of this ascension. And as are the elementals, as are the trees, etc., etc. And the rabbit was telling me that the animals know when we are aware of our unified field with them, with our unified consciousness with them. And they will acknowledge this to us. And it's like a contagion. They will spread it to those that they meet, as we will spread it to those that we interact with. So that's kind of the message that they've given me, is that the rabbit's given me, is that this is real. This is happening. A month, over the previous few weeks, I've had, because I'm big on the trees, it's how I got started. I've had some incredible experiences with the trees. I've had incredible experiences with a golden light in the bayou, deep in the bayou. When I get off the sidewalk and go into the bayou itself, into the guts of the bayou, there's been some pretty incredible experiences with the trees at a level that I've never had before. So there is something to this. There's something to the connectivity that we have, and acknowledging it and recognizing it and holding it in the sacredness that it is, and moving beyond the human condition, moving beyond the programs, moving beyond the need to know about conspiracies and disclosure. We are all connected, and when we understand and embody that, and that's really not the right way to say it, but when we actually surrender to that, then the power starts to come in. Now, imagine this happens with animals and trees, but what happens when it happens with people? You know, there is no control, there is only trust. And the more that we trust, even though the world will tell you, no, you got to have guns, and no, you got to lock your doors, and no this and no that, our power is so profound, even as an individual soul. But when two souls can lock in and say, you know what, I don't care about laws, I don't care about driver's license, I don't care about taxes, I don't care about, you know, apocalyptic prophecies and this and that. I don't care about that. I just care about this, acknowledging this connection that we have with all that is. And again, this isn't anything that's never been said before or written before, but the point is that people talk about these life reviews. I think there's two types of life reviews. There's one life review where you get to see what you did and go, oh, I was on that program, and oh, I was on that program. But there's a more emphatic life review. A life review that's not actually a life review, but that's actually existence itself in the present moment. And that is when you can feel everything that is felt as a result of your thoughts, words, actions, and energy. And that's what I picked up from the rabbits. Okay? And I just want to share this from an open heart and pure intention. If you ask my human aspect, Todd Medina, are you comfortable doing this? You who has done thousands of videos over the years, I will tell you that I'm not comfortable with this. But I do understand that as I've been guided and as I've been told, not that I'm anything special, because I'm only you, and that's all I need to be, right? I mean, I'm you, you're me, united consciousness, unity consciousness. But the point is that, you know, at some point in time, at any point in time, we're given the opportunity to carry that vibrational presence and resonance of that life review. In other words, to feel everything that we're putting out. I keep hearing the word reflection. I am a reflection of you. The rabbit is a reflection of me. We're all reflections of each other. And when we can see that oneness, it totally dominates, obliterates, equalizes all of this distortion. It becomes something that is nominal at best. Okay? So I've been guided to share this. And again, it's not something that I'm totally used to or comfortable with at all. I'm just doing what I've been guided to do, as I've tried to do for the last 12 plus years, you know, in the work that you know me for. So that's an hour and 8 minutes and 8 seconds with 88 people in the house. That must tell us something. But so, all right. I'm not really sure when I'll do another one. And I'm not really sure as to what the transmissions and broadcasts will be going forward. I do know that the Soulogy will be picking up the ball and moving things forward beginning tomorrow. I won't get into details, but just a little one step at a time, moment by moment. I just want to say part of my experience over the last couple of months has I think one of the really big standouts. You know, I've gone totally silent, basically, pretty much. You know, for somebody that's been on 3 and 4 times a day for years, after that Soulogy Fest, just go quiet, you know, and I wanted to, get started again on the 8th of January and then the 15th of January, but my soul kept telling me, no, you're being, kind of tethered by the old ways, and the new ways will make no sense. But the real standout that I wanted to talk about, or one of the standouts that I've experienced over the last few weeks, has been the space that people have allowed me on a personal level. And I know that doesn't just apply to me or just speak to me. I think it speaks to the collective energy as a whole. We're allowing ourselves more space. We're allowing people time to think. We're not looking for an immediate responses. We're not looking for validation as much. These things are falling away. And I'm convinced after my experiences in the bayou and other ones too, over the last few weeks and a couple of months, that we're well on our way is no longer a way to look at it. We're here. We are here. Period. Period. However things unfold, they will not unfold in ways that we think they will. And I think we can all attest to the fact that judgment has left the building with Elvis, and 100% compassion can be had in any given moment. We may have to check ourselves for a second, but this old saying of I'm only human is gone, because we're not only human. So I really appreciate you sharing space with me, honoring me with your presence. I thank you, and I wish you endless gratitude, love, honor, respect, and reverence. All blessings to you and yours. And until I see you again, thank you so much. Peace out.